Yeah, it's like when people who aren't ADHD say, "Well, I'm ADHD." Are you though?
Yeah. How do you know this?
I have a kid who is, and oh boy, sir.
Right. Do you
And she's
find,
an adult.
is that a difficult thing? Like some personality types probably find that a little bit easier to navigate in terms of interaction. Other ones maybe a little bit more frustrating. Where do you find you fall on that scale?
Have we started?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I don't get I don't get frustrated. Like my daughter is an adult, so I probably didn't help when she was young. I mean, you're by the way, you're here, but here. Is that okay with you? Do you want me to look at you there?
Oh
Doesn't
no,
matter
look
to you.
wherever's
I have multi
I'm easy.
monitors. You multi monitors. Um, I think when you're a young parent, and I wasn't that young, I was 30 when we had our first kid, but being a person who thinks a lot and is reflective and really, if you think a lot about what you're doing, this, you can get caught in loops where you kind of really second guess yourself, or third or fourth or fifth. And so, and I have this same issue that she would have showed as a child. And
Mm,
it would be when you're seeing some of your own flaws manifest in your child, you think, I'm going to sort of address this so she doesn't have to suffer some of the same bullshit that and that's not a good instinct always, because the solution that would work for me, you know what I mean, is for
yeah.
me. And so a lot of the being a parent was for me. I'm not saying anyone else would do this, but I think some version of going, you're literally individuating away from your child. Like you're like, the child grows away from you, but you're having to go, oh shit, like he has to be herself. And so that frustration gets much less as you get older and as the child gets older, because you realize that's not good. That
Yeah.
your instinct is wrong. I can't fix this problem. And so eventually someone could be medicated or could go to therapy or they could
Mm,
find their own coping mechanisms, but that's something that evolves in a person's life. You can't mandate away. And I was not a controlling parent, but just, it's like if you're riding on your bike and someone's behind you, you go, watch out for that pothole, and you get away around the pothole and you assume they're going to do what you did.
right. Well, and ultimately, you're trying to prevent them from experiencing pain or frustration and all these things that,
Yeah.
over the course of your life, you found difficult or were difficult at the time.
Yeah.
But in reality, like we don't ever actually learn anything by hearing about it, right? We can become aware of things and watch out for things, but we don't
Yeah.
actually listen and know things until we experience them ourselves. And then the lesson
Yeah.
can be learned in whatever way that is, as you're saying, right? Your lesson won't be her lesson. And
Yeah. And the trick would be like, how do you guide again, what the thing that you feel is like, what it feels like to get 10 stitches, and your kid gets 10 stitches and you're feeling the 10 that you got and
yeah,
the 10 that she gets, and you're feeling all of that at the same time, and you're like, how can I make it so that she doesn't feel all 10? Like, I know, and too much, and you project a lot of stuff on
right.
that innocent little figure. So you do
Yeah.
load them up, the
In the same
scenes, I mean, the
time,
situations, even you load the scenario.
well, it's just a higher emotional charge on your side, and then your energy is felt by her. And so
Yeah.
then it's all this amplification process as well, right? And so
what
what
you
do you do
what you
about
said,
that?
Bill, the biggest thing that you don't realize is how much your um, unspoken language is impacting the people around you. You just, even if you don't know, right?
Well, because there's no way to know other than verbalization, and words are just like they're a very insufficient tool to communicate, but it's the one that we have, at least cognitively and in our conscious mind, right? And so,
Yeah.
what are the unconscious lessons or messages we're receiving all times from all people? Like that's just it's too much to comprehend in our awareness.
Yeah.
And like what I don't know the percentage. What is it? Like 80% of communication is nonverbal. right? So
what you said, I think we can say that 80-20 rule people talk about in everything. That
yeah,
seems to apply here. But think
yeah,
too, Bill, like you and I have a mutual person that we both know very well, Mark Hussey.
hmm,
And the use of the word filters is so important to him that he says everyone has a filter. But what I was probably doing is when someone else is communicating with me and I'm communicating with them, how much am I hearing myself, right? How much am I hearing my own expectations?
hmm,
So you say to me, that is red. And I hear that is red, but my red is, we have no idea what my red
yeah.
looks like.
Well, and your red has an emotional charge, as does
Yeah.
mine. They're very
Yeah.
different. And yeah, filters, I use the word lens. It's the same thing. It's the
Yeah.
lenses with which we see the world. And I find it very interesting to become aware of the lenses with which I see the world and then interact with the world
Critical.
and then read people. That's where I love the social psychology stuff, that not that I'm educated at any degree, but it's very interesting in observation for me. Like that's in dealing with people and talking with people through conversations, I learn more about, you right now all the time. It's just,
For
where
you.
does your mind go? Right. It's very interesting.
you, you said that you're not educated. You're the age you are. You've been through the shit you've been through.
Sure.
You're pretty
Formal education.
educated.
Yeah. So
Formal,
I have
yeah.
the school of life, but not so much the school of today's societal, structure, we'll say.
Yeah. And Mark is the same, right? Mark
Yeah.
didn't go to school for a long time, but I don't know if you and I know a smarter person than Mark Hussey.
Right. Highly intellectual. Absolutely. Yeah.
And the thing that you realize is, whatever you put in there, if it's books, if it's philosophy, pick whatever. For him, it's how to do things that are important to our business that we have, tech
Hmm.
or whatever. For you, it's you tell me. But that idea of what makes you smarter, to me, it's irrelevant.
Right.
Like, and the older you get, the more you realize, oh shit.
Yes.
Like my grandpa who went to whatever grade 8 or whatever,
Two. Yeah. Right. Right.
think of
And I
what he knew.
totally agree. It's because your perspective changes and the lenses with which you see the world shift and grow, right? The depth of your perception increases.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what do you see? It's like, well, you see whatever you look at, and the things that you look at do change, and how you look
Oh
at
yeah.
them change.
Oh man. So do you remember that I used to be a teacher for so many years, right?
Yeah.
And the thing that, and I can't say I didn't know this. I think I knew it even when I was a kid, like a child. But it's like, how you know something, but then when you re-know it so many times, it's never less revelatory.
Yeah, absolutely.
It would be like, so you are from the world of exercise and weightlifting and a lot of that over your life. And there's this old saying, I'm going to bring this back around. There's this old saying that your workout should kind of scare you before you go to the gym. You're almost like what's coming and it's challenging, and even
Mhm.
if it's a simple workout. And I remember Joel once saying to me when I was coming off my hip replacement, my first one, I had two. I was coming up the stairs and he's at the top of the stairs and he clapped and he said, hardest part of the workout, you already
Yep.
did it. And the powerful idea that something is new every time. Like, anyway, what hit me about this in teaching people and educating people is you can't just give them information or like without context, it doesn't mean anything. You couldn't like, so anytime I was teaching something, I think, wait, in order to teach that, I have to teach this. Wait, in order to teach that, I have to. So it would be like this daisy chain of, so somebody would say, Mr. Law, do we have to learn about Macbeth? And I would be like, well, yeah, we do. I taught English, right? But first we're going to talk about witches. And they'd be like, listening.
Okay.
And we're going to talk about the king of England at the time who was obsessed with the supernatural and witches and finding demons and all that. And they're like, wait, what? And you know what I mean? Like you just would have a way into all these things. And all of a sudden, whatever you're doing it's like a putting the gem in a facet, right? It's in a setting. I think I said that right. The setting is really important for that gem, but the gem by itself is not as valuable. Anyway, that's that idea that the things that we learned, they need us to continue to do this, whatever this thing is. So you could read all the books you want. It's not going to help you. And by the way, none of this is revelatory. Everybody knows this.
Well, it to me, it's all through the lens of application and how you apply things and navigate the world. I mean, I would say to bring things around to you, you are probably, or at least in my perspective, you are Goddard's most interesting man, right? You're like the second guy of
I don't
Goddard's.
know.
And
I
I'm
don't
like, I
know.
don't know, Randall Lobb, he's doing some stuff. He's lived some life. And I love every time I speak to you, and I haven't talked to you in years, but
It's been a
it's
while.
always just such an engaging and interesting conversation. And so hence why I wanted to get you on here. And so I appreciate you coming on, first of all.
You know, the truth is, it's more about you than me. And what I mean by that is, probably people like me can be polarizing. So when you say that I'm interesting, that says more about you being a good person more than anything else.
Sure.
A good listener and an engaging,
Hmm.
you know what I mean, conversationalist.
Sure.
It's easy to be. My wife and I had the same conversation when, out of the thing I mentioned about my son, she said, everybody's weird. Like, we have this family that's maybe unusual. And she's like, everybody's weird. And I say, yeah, but it took me years to figure out that maybe we really are weirder in some ways, or something about us doesn't line up. And that's not always a good feeling for other people to participate in that, you know?
Sure.
So interesting is,
I can
I
relate
mean,
to
that's a
that,
very kind of you. Yeah, of course.
Well, and so on that note, one of my questions for you is, for people who don't know you, who is Randall Lobb?
I feel so sorry for people. So I'm writing autobiographical books. And I put them right now, I'm putting them on the stories on Substack.
Okay.
So I'll say this is not an ad for my book, but I started writing this book years and years ago. And it's called, in my mind, it was called Photogenic Memory. This is me. And I was always writing these stories, and I was writing them because the idea of thinking about, you said, who am I, is the thing that, like, I can remember knowing that. I can remember the feeling of figuring out that I was something. And and I know that's not normal. And that's what my son was referring to. He is reading this book of short stories, rather Substack. And you can find it. You can look for me in Substack, Randall Lobb, Photogenic Memory. I think it's like Born Gen X or something like that. You think I could look it up? The computer's right in front of me. But what he was saying is, he was reading that story where I figured out that I am something. And he said that he remembered that feeling. So, to answer your question in a very roundabout way, what I am is a person who has never been able to not think about what I am. Even when I was little, like, I was never able to participate in, pick a thing, kindergarten.
Right.
I am certain that there are lots of times that I was in kindergarten and I was a kid in kindergarten, and I'm just in kindergarten being a kid. But there are significant times in kindergarten where I'm like a man in kindergarten who knows he's a kid in kindergarten.
Right.
And the only way I could say it is, it's like, I would dream about being me now, in effect, as a kid. Like, I would have dreams where I'm an adult, and I would have all these adult, I want to say concerns, but that's not the right word. Like, I would be aware of the implications of things in a very big adult way, or big to me as a little kid. So I would be in kindergarten, and I would almost be like I had a camera on me in kindergarten. There's probably some psychology here that I don't have an answer
for
for.
sure.
There you go. So I'm in the situation, thinking about being in the situation. And this little trap makes you be so constantly testing what you are, that the answer to that question is a process that I'm wrestling with all the time, and not from a place that I even care what the answer is. Like,
Your curiosity, yeah.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't matter. I'm sure there was a point in my life where I had adolescent angst about, like, I was probably playing a violin. So I'm like, what am I? Oh my God, nobody understands me. And, or some, the corny version of all that.
Right.
But the reality was, or is, that was what I was wondering what I was. So the answer is like a puzzle box that goes in a circle
Right.
that you're like, oh,
The
and then you
interesting thing
die.
to me in that, or part of it, is the term what versus who. And my, I guess my question about that is, do you associate uh what you are, as in a function that you play in the world, versus who you are? And where my mind goes with that is like, for myself and identity, this is a tangent in itself, but I've come to the realization that I have a unique, what I perceive to be a unique relationship with identity, and that I don't associate very many things that I do with what I, or who I am. And so there's this dissociative state that I have with, if I relate who I am with the things that I do, those things can and probably will be taken away from me at some point. And so if that happens, I need to know that I'm still a person, that I still am valuable, etc. And so I associate who I am with a value system and a set of principles versus what I do in the world. But that's a question of who versus what. And so what I hear from you is what I am. And it's an interesting, where does your mind go with that?
Yeah, I was and am the opposite of you.
Okay.
Um, so maybe I am and was more or less coming in disengaged from what I did. So like, to, there's there's an aspect of this here. I wonder, did you grow up in a culture with defined masculinity elements that you, and this is not a criticism, that you bought into in a certain way, even as a boy, like you buy into a certain understanding of masculinity? Because what you described is a bit of that. I am a truck driver, and
Mm,
I take a lot of pride and identity from my inner relationships in a space in this context.
right.
You know what I mean? A lot of men have a real, you
Yeah.
know, and
But
my dad might be some of that.
sure. For me, I don't know. I think I see it through the lens of health, as you're not probably surprised, but it's
Yeah,
like when I'm in a hospital bed and my function in the world is nothing, really. I need
exactly.
to breathe. I need to know that I'm still valuable, I'm still lovable, all of these things, right? So associating with values and principles versus functions and actions, just to me that just made sense. And so it was a way for me to continue feeling energized, right? And I think that's one reason I've kind of avoided this whole state of depression in a lot of ways in my life. It's like, yes, I have emotional attachments to the things that I do. I very much have always enjoyed the gym and, various things. However, I also have been unable to do these things, and I've still been just fine. Right. And so that's been a mental
Yeah,
game I played with myself this whole time.
totally.
So, but in the
And
masculinity sense, I definitely think that I have come at a lot of my, not a lot of it, all of my stuff in life is like, well, the message, it's from my dad, that it's, you can take whatever it takes because that's what it takes. And that's my whole life. And I've never doubted that. I've never questioned it. It's like, I fucking
yeah,
got this. We don't know what this is, but I know that I got this. So
so I
that's a
evolved
masculine
to
trait.
that.
Pardon?
Yeah, I evolved to that.
Right.
I would have been a kid who would think, I can't do any of this.
Mm,
I can't do this. I can't take this. I can't be here. Like, and that's my whole message of my life. Like, oh my God, I can't be here. I can't take whatever is happening. And it'd be simple. I can't sit in this is real. I can't sit in this portable because the fire alarm might go off.
right.
And I would just feel the weight of the fire. And you'd say, well, why did you care if the fire alarm went off? All those concentric rings of ramifications. It's loud. It hurts my ears. It's scary. It surprises us. We have to go outside. We feel like something chaotic is happening. We're out of control. What if this place is on fire? And I'd
Hmm.
seen a fire as a kid. My dad was a firefighter,
Right.
and pigs died in that fire, by the way. I smelled all the pork and stuff. So maybe that's part of it. But so I was terrified
Right.
to a degree that I didn't feel I was up. to any task. So I didn't have that masculine. I wanted it, but I didn't have it.
Right. So what did you find? I'm guessing you would gravitate towards finding areas of control in your life. And so, yeah, what at a younger age or even along, what does that path look like? Or how does that
Oh,
sort of progression in your life look like in terms of what have you been gravitating towards that sense of control?
so yeah. Well, every everything, like
Sure.
everything. If you're, and again, I don't. None of this is pathological. I'm obviously, to preface this, I'm a fully functioning person with a family, and my first wife is my only. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, so there's no pathology here that has been able to weigh me down past the ability to manage the outcomes to my benefit as yourself.
Yep.
And you know that I've had a medical journey that is wildly less difficult than yours, but is its own difficulty in its own silly ways. And we can only have our own problems. So,
That's it. Yeah.
roundabout way of saying everything that I would have done as a kid probably would have started with me being afraid, and how do I manage my fear of that?
Mhm.
So it would be that somebody might say he is the class clown or the funny kid in the class. I'm controlling how you laugh at me, and I'm controlling your way of looking at me,
Right.
or managing the energy of the room that I'm in.
You're creating the filter with which they see you
Yeah.
in one way, right?
Yeah, and got really good at all, and truly really good at all the things that would go into that. So like, can you do voices? Yeah, I can copy the people around me, mimic their sounds. Can you memorize Cheech and Chong routines from 19, the album Big Bamboo or George Carlin? Like, I had it all. Monty
Right.
Python had it all. Like, anything, any tool that would give me some sense of control, I would manage that. So a little kid like me, and this sounds crazy. Who's listening to this? Hopefully nobody that we know. Um, Extremely manipulating of everyone around me, if I could be. And
Sure.
I'm literally writing a story right now about the time I figured out that my feelings didn't have to show on my face.
Hmm.
And I was such a good liar as a kid.
Right.
And I remember my mom saying to someone when I'd done, and I think I knocked a vase over in water and plants and stuff. And I remember her saying to someone, he literally believes he did. Like, it looks like you
Right.
couldn't read on his face. And I remember my whole life, people have always said that, like, I can't tell if you're telling the truth or not. And my joke always was, neither can I.
Right.
But of course I could. And
Yeah.
and that way, like, so you control yourself first. You don't show anything that you don't want to show. Your interactions with people have a little, they're all geared to, you
Right.
know, not, you're not trying to hurt someone or manipulate them to your advantage. It's to protect yourself in
Yeah.
a given situation. Almost all of the things. So you could pick a situation. You could say any common thing that a kid would have, and I could give you I've never been drunk.
Right.
I've never had a drink, and it was just not for me.
Right.
Um, Everything that would be a choice you could make to exert control over a situation, like just the most minute, stupid version of how you would do that as a child,
Right.
right up to, okay, here's one. I'm 2 or 3, and my parents are going away, and I'm scared they're going to go. Now, I have no reason to have attachment problems. Zero. I have great parents, super nice, never hit me, never,
Yeah.
nothing. But I have enormous abandonment issues as a little boy. So when they're going out for a night, and I remember this, that they're going to, I remember it because my mom looked weird because she was going dressed up. It was for
Right.
Halloween. I was completely freaked out. And I was vomiting in the sink, but I didn't vomit in the sink until the babysitter came in.
Right.
And then I just vomited in the sink. And I vomited, Bill, I broke all the blood vessels in my neck and my
Uh-huh.
face. I had black eyes. And then people thought I was being beaten.
For sure.
And to me, like, why are you doing that? Why would a kid do that? Yeah, you're panicking, you're freaking out, you get yourself sick. But also, what else are you doing? You're saying, I'm sick, you can't leave.
Yeah, your
You know what I
parents are
mean? Like,
sticking around 100%.
desperation mode, you become just a monster trying to make everything
Yeah.
around you feel better for you. It's just that all the time. And it's really, uh, again, it's not pathological enough to have harmed me, but it just created a real, it was a very taxing way to be a kid. Like,
Mm.
I remember thinking stuff like, I wish I could have fun. I wish I was a kid. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
I wish I was a kid.
In a different way, I do know what you mean. Yeah.
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 Well, you had a life-threatening situation when you were young, right? It started
Yeah.
immediately for you? Yeah.
From pretty much like from year 17 months on.
Yeah.
So,
So, yeah, and so you literally had something to fight against. I was fighting myself. There's
right.
nothing to fight. It's
Well, I wonder,
ridiculous.
did you find that uh I think there's a connotation to manipulation, but that is the word that you use, and it's not inappropriate, I think. But did you find that that sort of degree of manipulation throughout your life has affected the depth of the relationships that you've had along your life as well? Because a lot of where my mind goes immediately is a lot of the time that's sort of one way to avoid a form of vulnerability, right? It's like I will control the situation so that if you leave, I know that you're leaving because I made you leave, versus
Yeah,
like here I
yeah.
am.
So again, yes.
Yeah.
First half, yes. But at no point would I ever have like you would I would flip it
Right.
so that I would never, like, the thing about someone who is trying to make everyone laugh, what you get hooked on is making people feel up.
Yeah.
Even like, now listen, don't think that's always good, because then sometimes you make someone else feel less to make you know what I mean? You tease someone and then you're up and you
Yep.
make a terrible young immature judgment call where you're like, oh, I realize I'm hurting someone else to make everyone else laugh, and I'm not thinking about the cost on that person. I'm thinking I'm making everybody happy. No, no, you're not. You know,
Yeah.
you're a child, you do stupid things, and so I'm
Yeah.
guilty of that for sure.
Hmm.
But the description you gave, if I was a person in a relationship where I am trying to protect myself, the way that I would obviate that self-sabotage would be to make the other person feel like they couldn't,
Yeah.
because his devotion is so pure. You know what I mean? It'd be the other way around.
Yeah.
Like, they would say, I'll never find someone who treats me so, like, that's in my head. I'm sure the people would say, no, no, he's not that great, but that's
Yeah.
what you're telling yourself, right?
For sure.
And so to that point, what you would, again, I'm saying what I probably learned to do is to not operate from a set of deeply ingrained principles and things based around like my ego, because
Mm.
it was not relevant to me. So if you said, oh, you're dumb, you're wrong, I'd be one of the first people to go, yeah, I'm probably wrong. Yeah.
Mm.
So you can't really fight with me,
Right.
because I'll say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hurt, and I mean it. I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
didn't mean to hurt your feeling. And they'd be like, didn't you lose something by being sorry? No. What
No,
do I have to lose? Nothing.
doesn't cost anything. That's right.
Yeah. So that was me in many cases. And as I got more mature, that was uh times a million. Like, I'm the guy, they're looking out at the room like, who broke the lamp? And I'd be like, well, I'll say I did it because I can take it, but she can't. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I'm
absolutely.
that kid. I'm sorry, that was me. It was a mistake, and I'd have a big fucking lie about how I did.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And for
And
you, it's
that's not
probably
exact.
stimulating, right? It's like,
Yeah.
oh, now I get to tell a story and they're going to believe me because I'm good at it. And it's here we go.
And you're controlling the conditions of a very tense situation.
Mm.
Yeah. And so that's me all the time. Again, as a kid, I didn't have tons of girlfriends or boyfriend. You know, there's no sexual thing to navigate, because I was just like so strange. I'm sure other kids were, but I mean, I had a girlfriend in grade 10 and I liked her the whole time I was in high school. And
Right.
she probably felt like if she was on this call, she would say he was very uh, much. He was a lot
Sure.
because
Sure.
I was probably trying to access more from her than I'm, she's probably thinking, I'm 15. I can't do these
Yeah.
things. Like, just not
Yeah.
even, I'm not talking physically, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. Is this how all relationships are supposed to be? And because what do you know? You're 15, it's probably your first one, or for hers, it's first or
for
second
sure,
time, right? It's
for
like,
sure.
I don't know anything.
And, and,
So,
and I like, and I know that it's too much. I mean, now I look back, it's funny. I'm not embarrassed. Like,
right.
because you're a child, you don't know. I feel bad for her that she had to put up with it,
Right.
but my current wife, who is in my house right now, I met her in 1986, and we've never been apart.
Yeah.
We've been together ever since because of that instinct. That, and the same thing. Like Mark Hussey, if he was on this call, he'd say the same thing. That if I'm with someone who means well to me, well, I mean, well for them. Like, yeah, you can take
Yeah.
my car. Here's half my sandwich, whatever. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
Reciprocity is not a second thought. Yeah.
but that's comes from a place of control.
Hmm. Yeah. And
Like,
in a backdoor sort of way, right? It's definitely not the initial thought or the initial impression generally when you think about that.
I know, but
Yeah.
it is. It's like aggressive Canadian
Sure.
sorriness, and it's almost like you made a comment that is true for me now. Like this feeling like I can take it. Go ahead, I can take it. Right.
Mhm.
And that's what I was sort of like about these sorts of situations.
Right.
Like, in a sense, like, uh, again, the way you described it, I don't have to self-sabotage. Like, I don't have to drive someone away to prove it true. It
Hmm.
was more like I was already feeling like I was at the bottom.
Yeah.
Like, I think when you're little and you feel the victim of yourself, I should back up. Here's why I realize I never said this. My senses are really crazy. Like, I had synesthesia as a baby, as a child growing up, where your
Okay.
senses mix together,
Right.
right? So the experience of being alive was wild,
Intent.
like overwhelming. Yeah,
Yeah.
intense. And the best example that's left, and I can still access this feeling, and I've said this before, probably people have heard this if they know who I am. But the example I would give you is I had a recurring dream that was red. And all it was, and I used red as the example earlier because of that.
Yeah.
All it would be is I would have red filling every sense. Like, I can hear what red sounds like. When I see red, I don't hear that sound anymore, right? That's not
Mm.
how it works. It's the other way around
Mm.
somehow. It's an internal mixing. Like, so you would see red, you would see the word red, it would be enormous, and I could feel the weight of it, and it pull my eyes and pull my body and made me nauseous, and I would have vertigo in the face of red. And it was so overwhelming. And I can do it now, make it happen.
Right.
It's like I had to learn how to stop that from happening. So when it would have that impact on me, I would get up and I would be young and walk through the house and touch things in the house, like to go,
Yep.
these things are real. This is real. This is so. I was really, and
Kinesthetic.
to soothe
Hmm.
the chaos when you're touching stuff. It's like, okay, I'm reassured in some way. So when I'm growing up as a kid, everything is like that. It's like I have to control out because inside is absolute madness.
Yeah.
So imagine music for me, how like
Yeah.
it's so intense as a kid. And we were like something as simple as music class. Like, I actually would get nauseous in music class. I would feel sick, like I'm gonna freak out or cry or like,
Hmm.
but I can't show any of the and you can't say to someone, Mrs. Crocker, I have to leave when you guys sing Bill Grogan's Goat because I'm gonna throw up. She's like, what?
Yeah. What are you
You
talking
can't
about?
even, and you learn that you can't say any of these things. So you have this whole internal world that is so clearly irrelatable to other people's internal world, or it seems
Yeah.
that way,
Yeah.
that I didn't never went into a relationship where I was like, I'm awesome and you're going to love it. Oh, it's not working. I'm going to make it. You know what I mean? I never
Yeah.
felt that. I would always be like, oh my God, did you like me? And that's probably how I would start every conversation.
Right. Yeah.
What?
Legitimate surprise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's right. Not a knee jerk lack of self confidence, because probably everyone that grew up with me would think that I thought I was awesome, which nobody who's, of
Yeah.
course, he doesn't. You know what I mean? He's
Right.
just weird. But nobody who would listen to that, like the language of that, like a young woman that you're having a relationship with, she's not going to be able to understand, like, my internal world is chaotic and I'm trying to communicate with you and this is like a
No.
conduit. And she's like, can we just go and watch a movie?
Yeah. No, I
Yeah,
hear you. It's like, well, and I always, as of course, but through the lens of health stuff, it's like, of course you can't relate to it. And so I need to then manage my expectation of that, because the longer I
yeah,
hope that someone or you or anybody will ever have some grasp of understanding of what any of this is like, the more I'm going to be disappointed and hurt about it, because it's never going to happen. Right. And
yeah.
so then managing the expectation of having that be the case, that's just the option. And so that's what we do. It's like, well,
Well, think about you. You're a kid who's, I would say, probably acutely aware of the dangers that exist on the planet, in a
sure.
sense, from zero.
Right.
And so what your choices are dictated by a reaction to this singular post at the center of yourself.
Hmm.
And if somebody said, the name was Muscle Bill, what is someone doing? They're pushing against the weight. And
Yeah.
that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And it's that definition is a good, I would say, a pro social, it's a positive way to react, as opposed to a million other bad choices.
Sure.
Anyway, so again, a minor, stupid little thing, internal, and you're managing that internal thing. So your behaviors become all just like sort of the root of what we just started this part of the conversation.
Yeah.
You're just circling this one thing.
Well, and it's
So
just like I put that around like why I'm really good at reading people, why I'm good at feeling the energy in rooms. Like I had to know, is this a dangerous place? Is this person in a reactive state? Am I in danger? Because I have a lot of ways that I'm in trouble very quickly. And so if so, I'm going to exit or I'm going to de-escalate the situation. And I think that's one of
yeah,
the reasons conversation has become a tool. It's like I got to be able to navigate things if they get intense, and I need to be
yeah,
able to know that they're coming versus being surprised
yeah,
and all these layers of things.
yeah.
But and then
You know what else it is, Bill?
what's that?
You and I'll say this from experience now. You're a kid in a hospital bed, and the nurses have to like you. You
Sure,
can't afford to be a dick.
sure,
You can't.
yeah. Well,
You
and
have to be a good
legitimately,
talker.
um, just the legitimate gratitude of like being incapacitated and just this. I don't know how you cannot be grateful when, like, as you know, in a hospital, like you can't shower for days. Post
No.
surgery, it could be a week
Yeah.
or 10 days before you're allowed to clean anything. And so
Yeah.
by that time, you feel a certain way. And when someone comes into your room and says, today's the day we get to clean, and like you will feel like a new person, but that process of feeling like a new person that is then brought to you by this, generally as a
Yeah.
woman, but by the nurse.
Yeah.
This person has now allowed me to experience this life-changing event in real time right here, and there's literally nothing I can do either way. And so it's just like this appreciation of this person just changed my life. And I just, you're still in rough shape, but you feel infinitely better immediately.
You just proved how you're a better person than me.
How do you mean?
You took it to a very beautiful human place of gratitude for that person giving you a gift.
Mm.
I'm literally talking about controlling other people so that they are nice to me.
Oh, so that they like you. Right. Right.
Well, not that they like me.
Right.
The effect of them liking me is what I'm after.
Right.
Protecting myself by making sure that they think
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
you're going, oh, they gave me a gift, and I'm going, how can I make sure they like me?
Right.
Isn't
Well,
that
and I guess
horrific? What a nice man you are.
Well, I don't know. I was a cute kid. When I was a kid, I had the cards in my favor. You know, I had little curly hairs, and I was a cute kid. But anyway, that's I part of the thing I love about conversation is just hearing the different perspectives on things. Like because the angles on situations that I would never think about or wouldn't generally think about, I just love the whole process of that. Um, I don't know a lot about your medical background other than you said you've got your hip. Was it hips both replaced?
Yeah, I had both replaced. My medical background is nowhere near as exciting as yours.
Sure.
Uh, and I don't mean exciting in a good way, like roller coasters, but mine is filled with weird things that the best way to describe it would be like if there's something that I thought of that I thought, oh, that would be the worst. I probably got that thing.
Sure.
So when I would have bad synesthesia, I would get vertigo.
Hmm.
And I hated being dizzy. And when I would be a child and my parents would go away, I would vomit a lot. But I have not vomited since 1969. I will not throw up because I hate being dizzy so much. And
Right.
I hate feeling sick. Like that feeling is just linked with synesthesia terror to me. I can't do that. So I'm 4 or less, and I jumped on a snowmobile. I'm with my dad on a snowmobile. He jumps off, and I hit, and I have a head injury. I smash into a tree on a snowmobile.
Right.
So I had my first head injury at 3, and then I fell down some concrete stairs, had a concussion.
Right.
5, kindergarten, and then I was a little older, fell on the ice, broke my nose, concussion. Get a little older, you know what I mean? I've had
Yeah.
a lot of concussions. And when I was 23, I had a bad one. I fell off my bike in Toronto and got hit by a taxi and had amnesia, retrograde and anterograde. And in that amnesia period, however long that was, you know, there are 2 kinds of amnesia. The kind where you can't make new memories, so you keep going back to a period. Lots of people have seen that. Where am I? How did I get here? And I had
Yep.
that for quite a while, but I knew I had it. So I didn't go all the way to 0. I'd be like, where am I at 0? And then I'd be like, something's wrong. And I would know that something was wrong.
Right.
But then I had retrograde, which meant I might have mixed them, but I forgot whatever, a
The
period of time.
past.
Like,
Yeah.
who's my girlfriend? Where do I live? Where my name's Rand. Where, yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And that came back. But having had a lot of those head injuries, the recovery from them is being dizzy.
Hmm.
So in
Isn't that funny
1988, I
how
had
that
this head
works?
injury. Yeah. In 1988, I have this bad head injury, and I had a lot of problems after that, and changed my whole life, and became a teacher because of that head injury. And in the period between about 88 and I don't really know exactly when, a tough period, maybe having kids, 95, something like that. I lost a lot of weight, and they were checking me for cancer and stuff like that. And I had always felt sick, felt like my ear was full all the time. And
Hmm.
eventually I got diagnosed with Meniere's disease, which is a problem with your inner ear. And you have this fluid that fills your inner ear. It's vertigo, and you get nystagmus, your eyes do that
Right.
up one corner, and it's terrible. It's one of the worst feelings. When I first got it, I had no idea. And you have terrible tinnitus, just and it just felt like exactly the feeling of being a kid and having, and it's
Yeah.
just so crazy. And it just, the circle of that, and that has been so impactful for so many years. Like, I had to teach with that, and there were times when, like, I mean, you just think, I can't do this. You go through these periods where you're like, I don't think I can continue. And then you continue. You let yourself vent that out.
Yeah.
And you think, what, am I going to step in front of a truck? And then what happens? And I leave my family, and like,
Yeah.
that's a coward's way out. If I really hate myself, I'll live through this, because that's how you really, you know what I mean? That
Sure.
if you really hate yourself, you keep going, punish yourself, let yourself do it.
Right.
So anyway, this idea of having these head injury things. And again, I'm speculating that's what it is, but that has been super impactful. And then in 2010, no, right around 20, maybe it's 2006, 7, we went to Germany for a year, came back, and I was getting tested, just normal test for this thing. And I get off the bed and I'm moving strangely. And the doctor here in town says, "Oh, you like, it's very strange the way you move." And I was like, "Oh, sometimes I just get stuck." She's like, "What do you mean stuck?" I
Yeah.
don't know. So she starts asking me some questions and I answer the questions, but I don't really think about the answers. When I have Meniere's disease, you'll know all about this. You compartmentalize, you put it in a box and you have to set it aside. Like
Yep.
I'm dizzy right now and I feel like I'm going to fall down, but I have to fucking walk across this room and teach these kids. So I
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
a way to do it. And
Life
it's
goes
really
on.
hard. And
Yeah.
it takes years to build that up.
Sure.
So the doctor says, maybe you better go get x-rayed. I'm like, I don't need to get x-rayed. Like, I'm fine. She's like, maybe you should go. And then, of course, paranoia. Like, do I have a tumor in my spine? Is that what she's telling me? So I go and get x-rayed and come home. And they call me right away. And the I guess I've forgotten the word, but the radiologist, the doctor who's a
Yep.
radiologist, he's passed away now. Dr. McKee, I think was his name. He called me at home and I knew him a little bit, taught his kid. And he says, "You have to come back. We have to x-ray you again." I'm like, holy shit, I do have this tumor on my spine. And
Mm.
he goes, "I just need you to come back." I come back and he's laughing, so I'm not too scared. And he says, "We've mixed your x-rays up with somebody else's. I need to get your x-rays. They fucked it up." And I'm like,
Right.
"What?" He goes, "Yeah, we've mixed your x-rays up." So I get x-rayed and he comes right in and he says, "I can't believe these are your x-rays. These look like an 85-year-old man's hips."
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, "What?" And he says, "Your hips are like up inside the socket and they have spikes all over them." And
Right.
he goes, it's insane. They're all fucked up." And I'm like, stunned. And if you said, "What's the evidence of it in your day-to-day life?" Like, "Oh, well, I could add it up. I could come up with it."
Yep. For
So
sure.
they said, "You'll know when you have to get your hips out." So in 2010, I finally couldn't get off the toilet, for example. If I sat on the toilet or
Yeah.
a chair, it was so bad. And I had this Meniere's disease. So I'm like, oh, I don't like too many things.
Yeah.
So I went and got my hips done and I got them done the same summer, and not a good idea. And coming back from that, again, new compartmentalization, build a new little box. And this sounds stupid, but I liked the rehab of it. It's mental discipline. You know what I mean? You
Oh yeah.
physically can make choices to progress.
I
You know that
I
feeling.
sure fucking do. Oh yeah.
Yeah. And you feel like I also was seduced, funny wording, but by the feeling of the reduction of external stimuli to I just have to get better.
Yeah.
That's it. And if someone said, "What do you want to eat?" Don't give a shit.
Yeah.
I just have to get better.
Yep.
And that was very freeing for me. So
Did
I
you
come out of that.
I wonder, sorry to interrupt, but did you
No,
find that when you had the internal healing with your hips to do, that lessened the stimulation or the intensity of your other senses?
no,
No way.
no. Uh, it, the mind shift of reducing the external stimuli is a thing that has happened over time. I
Okay.
had I had some bad experiences. I was interfered with as a kid in a bad way, bad touching. I'm not embarrassed, or it doesn't bother me to talk about it. But
Mhm.
that process of, not even like, I didn't have to heal from it, but the process of figuring that out,
Right.
you get really good at boxing stuff up, right? Like figuring
Absolutely.
it out. And then it's basically the magic trick is to apply that selective. I want to choose to do that.
Hmm.
Like, here, not there. You know what I mean?
I sure do.
Yeah. So that idea was what was happening in the physical rehab of the hips. It's like
Right.
I'm figuring out ways, but I was still having Meniere's disease and all that crap. And anyway, the end of this stupid parade of foolishness is on in August in 2015. I was walking to get my car at the garage, and I was walking past McDonald's wearing a black hat and listening to a podcast, and a woman had two dogs on a lead, a Y lead,
Right.
and one was a little wee dog and one was a big part boxer, part Rottweiler. And it just ran at me and came for my face. It jumped, and I put my hand in its mouth, and
Right.
it bit through my hand.
Yep.
And it was bad, but it wasn't, like I got bit by a dog. I didn't like it, but then I thought, it went through. You could see that it didn't go right out the top, but the bottom,
Right.
the palm was really impacted. So I thought, I better go to the hospital. And the woman was acting crazy, so I did not stick around there. I went to the hospital and I got whatever they do, irrigated, and they said, yeah, you might have to get some shots and stuff, but we're not stitching it because it needs to,
Yeah.
whatever's in it has to come out. But like weeks later though, I was driving and my hand felt crazy, swollen, and started to puff up and act weird, and I thought, holy shit, I've got an infection.
Yep.
And this went on for ages. Like, I was going to specialists and they're like, oh, we may have to open your arm up and drain your tendon sheath, or like
Sure.
crazy stuff that I'd never heard of.
Right.
And I went to all these specialists. I had to stop teaching, Bill. Like that, I quit early.
Mhm.
I had it was unbelievable. I was in a splint that I was all taped, and my hand was huge and red. And a woman at an event saw me I went to school with her, that I'd known years ago, and she said, "Oh, you have complex regional pain syndrome." And I
Mm.
was like, "What?" And no one said anything about that. All these specialists. I even saw an infectious disease specialist in London who
Yep.
studied tropical diseases.
Yeah.
Like, there's just no way. You have leishmaniasis or whatever it is. So she says, "Oh, you have CRPS," and she pulls me aside, dead serious. She goes, "Take that fucking splint off and move your hand."
Hmm.
And she said it like in a way that's scary. And I was like, "What are you talking about?" She said, "My friend who's a nurse has a hand she calls her Franken hand, and because she didn't move it, it's all swollen and gross
Uh-huh.
and she can't use it."
Sure.
Holy shit. So I pulled the splint off and it was horrible, but I started using it. I go to see a doctor who then says, "Yeah, you have CRPS." And he puts me in this program. And I was in this program where they did, like, I had ketamine infusions and stuff like
Yeah.
that. I don't know if you've done that. Sometimes people get that treatment for depression, and I had it for this hand thing, but it was too late for them to sever the nerve in my neck. So what I decided I had to do was treat it like rehab. So like I could barely use it, but I just
Oh
said
yeah.
I have to force myself through this situation, and eventually, could ride a bike again. 5 years took me till the pandemic to ride my bike again,
Hmm.
but I got it back. And as I said, I quit work, and like I can't write with a pen. I can
Right.
hardly type.
Right.
Like, I had just had to relearn everything, and you just relearn it from a new threshold. Like, how much does it hurt? How much can you take it? So I was designed in advance to be good at, if you get what I'm saying.
I do. Yeah. Yeah. It's
Anyway,
fun.
so those few things together just made my background. Like, if some doctor would say, "So what have you got?" And I'd be like, "It sounds like I've got Baron Munchausen by proxy," or whatever it's called, making up a disease. But it sounds like a whiner, a hypochondriac whiner.
Right.
You think of a problem, then you get that problem. So
Right.
I tried not to get sucked into the sort of the narrative around having some of these things.
Yeah. The diagnosis. Well, and the diagnosis, and then in turn the identity with the diagnosis as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Dude, I was sitting there with you go to an opiates program when you're in the pain clinic. Like that,
Sure.
everybody there wants oxys at the time period I was in there.
Yep.
And I was saying, I don't want them. That I don't.
Yep.
It's not that I'm afraid of them either. It's just like I have to feel my hand. Like, I don't want my hand to be like a dead hand. I have to go, like, okay,
Yeah.
into the fire here.
Yeah.
You know,
No,
horrible, but
I know. After my heart surgery in 2018, I had a stage 4 pressure ulcer on my tailbone. And so I couldn't sit, I couldn't lay on my back, but at the same time I couldn't walk and I couldn't stand. So
there's not a lot left, Bill.
I know. Well, and so what ends up happening is you put a lot of pressure on your tailbone for most of the day, and your whole body knows that. And so as you're talking about this discomfort and the pain and the drug, like I think I was 3 days post-op, and I started on one regular strength Tylenol every 6 hours for pain management. And that was my whole protocol that I didn't like. I maybe for 30 days. And outside of that, I was 6 months healing that pressure ulcer. But like that pain doesn't go down, right? You just have to do things anyway.
Did you feel that cycle, that weird cycle that you go through? You
In
know what I
which way?
mean? So, like, I have it right now, right? I have it all the time.
Yep.
And one of the little tricks, there was you know what mirror therapy is?
Hmm.
So they want you to do stuff like that. But I was doing
Right.
this thing where I would look at my hand, and if it feels like you can't do it with your back, I guess is part of what I'm kind of getting at. You
Yeah.
think about what it's doing and what is happening, and you try to not have the internal language be the dictator.
Right.
And so you're like, it hurts, but it's not broken. It's, you know what I mean? This is a
Right.
mental thing that is
Right.
that kind of thing. Did you do that stuff where you're like
No.
trying to
So
build this?
I essentially I went into shock every night before bed, like around between 7 and 8 p.m. I had too much stimulation in my nervous system for the day, is what I believe happened. And I would just start to shake and I would cough. And then I would just sit. So I had a recliner chair in my living room. I sit in the dark, no lights, no sound. I had a pillow propping up on one half of my body. So I'd sit on my one
Right.
hip. I'd have a little pillow to hug because post heart surgery, you have to hold your sternum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
would sit there and shake and cough and just try. And then I got pneumonia. So if you can imagine that.
That I remember.
Right.
Yeah.
And so this whole thing is happening, but it was every single day before bed. I sat in my chair in the dark by myself and I just sat and shake and cough. And that was eventually I got enough in me to get like to make the, 30-foot walk to my bed. But like that's just what I did every day. So
Did you did you try hypnotizing yourself or something like that in that moment?
no, it's literally just breathe. And like I know that it's in my body. I can mimic how I breathed at the time. There's multiple points in my life where like I can recreate it as you're saying, you can
With
feel the
this,
weight of red
yeah,
and all these
yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah,
I can make my
yeah,
body do it because it's fucking in there, but and so I just did that, but it's really to me it's ultimate acceptance. It's this total almost
yeah,
release of control. It's like, what can I do right now? Right now I can take about a third of a breath and repeat. And that's it. It's just endure. And I've always known it will get better. I've always known my body will improve and this is going to change. I don't know the timeline because some days you wake up and it's infinitely worse, right?
yeah,
And then some
yeah.
days you wake up and you're like, you know what? This is actually maybe manageable, right?
Grab the day.
Yeah, and then the next day, who knows? But I
I
think it's just
mentioned,
an exercise in acceptance is where I've always taken it.
well, and that's why I mentioned hypnosis.
Yeah.
Like the there's a thing that one of the doctors I went to see was like into getting you to repeat, like almost like a mantra.
Mm,
He never called it meditation,
right.
but it was like mantra stuff and repetition, and that again, like you imagine what it means, what you're doing, and you try and create a thing, a way to say it. Like you said, in my mind, I was blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
So in my mind, you're like trying to go into a trance
Mm,
where you, like you say, this is pain and it's going through me and it's not stopping,
hmm.
right? It's a process and I'm transiting into,
Hmm.
and you try and get this sort of flow state. Like that's what I was
Yeah.
mentioning. Oh, this is a bad one. That's
Yep.
okay. There's another bad. Hey, so I bring that up because I was lucky enough to do that live. I had that happen live during one of these assessments.
Oh,
So I had a headset on that they put all these lights and stuff in
right.
front of, and they're shooting cameras into my eyes, and I have these things in my ears, and they shoot in water. I think it's called caloric testing, water and puffs of air and stuff to trigger the vertigo.
Right.
So they're trying to trigger it, and then they can observe what my eyes do, and it's all I'm being observed in the setting. And they have a bucket there, and they say everybody throws up,
Yeah.
and I say I won't. I'll feel
Right.
it, but I won't throw up. So
Right.
anyway, I lay down and I'm being assessed for a surgery called gentamicin. I think it's called a gentamicin perfusion or something like that. They chemically ablate your inner ear. They destroy it with chemicals.
Right.
So I'm laying there getting the test, And they stop the test and they pull me back up and they go out and come back and then they restart the test. And I can hear them talking through the ear things I'm wearing. And they start it again and the fucking thing is horrible. And I'm fighting it with everything I got. And they 3 times stop and start. And then the main doctor, Dr. Parnes at the London Ear Clinic, comes in. And he's like irritated, like, what's going on? This is stupid. What's happening? And they've obviously said to him, this guy's broken the machine or whatever. And I'm like, oh shit, I broke. Like, is it the headset or? And he's looking at, I guess, at a screen that shows what my eyes are doing. So he can see my pupils and stuff. And they're trying to make my eyes go nystagmus, do the patterns and blah, blah, blah. And he stops partway through and he goes, count by threes. So they started up and I go 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 20. And he goes, stop, stop, stop. Reset. Count backwards by threes from 100. 197, 94. You know, I start going down and they stop and he sits me up and he goes, what are you doing? Now, I legitimately am just trying not to be dizzy. That's like I tell you, when I'm in that state, I'm doing one thing.
Yep.
And he's like, in effect, we can see you doing something live. You're doing something. And it's stopping the process from happening that we have to measure. And as soon as he said that, I was like, click. Oh, I totally, you said it yourself, disassociative state earlier, right? I shut it off, put it in a box, and I go, I cannot do this.
No, now's not the time.
I can't.
Nope.
I can't vomit in that bucket. I can't have this feeling here in this room. I can't show them what they need to measure this measurement. And I just couldn't do it. And he finally said, we're not going to do the surgery. And Rick took me back home. My brother was there.
Yep.
He was taking me down. This is the test before. And they're like, you come back if it starts up again. And I've never been back. When I get it, I have a whole set of things that I do, like you. And when I do those things, that to me is hypnosis. It's a trance.
For sure.
And it's the only way you build all these little codes. And it's like, you might say, I need that pillow. I need to look at that light on that angle and that door is open that much. And
the degree of awareness for self-soothing, it's incomprehensible to anyone who doesn't. It's like you've either experienced it or you haven't, and there's no way to describe it or go through it. It's like you either get it or you don't.
I never thought about that before. I just assumed that everyone has their version.
They sure don't. And that's, well, yeah. And in a way, but to me, that's like in its avoidance. It's I don't feel anything at a certain point, and then it just goes away. Right? Versus like, I'm going to feel all of it. And that's its own thing.
And win.
100%. And without doubt. And that's the other thing. And I hear that from you too. It's like, you are not going to make me vomit. And I just know that. I don't have to believe it. It's just is true. And similarly, it's like, as you're hearing back from me, I think is the try me. I'm on for the ride.
You know, this is why you started by saying you thought I was interesting. When you and I first started to talk a bit back and forth, I was in the heat of some of this and you were in the heat of some of this.
Right.
And I think what you probably twigged onto is this old bastard is doing a trick that you fought your way to by a lifetime of fucking struggle. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I somehow blundered into this, Bill, straight up luck by the way my brain was. You know what I mean? Because I did not have the strength of character to do this on my own. Like, not the kid that was strong. You and I in school, people watch us walking around. They'd say that Billy's a strong little boy, and that little prick needs a lot of work.
He needs some,
like, that would be
more observation. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay,
like
so
it was like you're built by the scenario, and I'm just absolute fluke.
Yeah. I mean, I guess so. I don't know.
I think your struggle is so real from the time you're little that you just set. It's like, I wrote this in a book. My dad, when I was a little kid, I always thought of him as he walked like the wind was always blowing into him. He's just leaned a little bit forward.
Yep.
And that's you. Like just leaned into the wind. Like I know where the winds are coming from. I'm just walking into
Yeah.
them. But for me, it was more like I didn't have enough outer reasons. Even the way that I was, interfered with as a kid wasn't soul defining. You know what I mean? It wasn't
Right.
crushing. It was bad, but 1 in 4. You know what I mean? It's not
Right.
a big.
Right.
It's not like I was horribly injured. So
Right.
you just get this pure luck of coping a certain way, and it evolves. Whereas someone like you by force of actual will have to make those choices. Now we might be in a similar place will wise. You know what I mean?
Mm,
We've come to this place and we are the
sure.
age that we are. And in your case, you've defied so many odds to get where you are. But me, it's like I just rolled down a hill and hit some of the right things
Sure.
on the way down.
Right. In that vein, like one of the questions I like to ask, or it honestly, it's in terms of God. One of them is, what's your definition of God? But the second part of that is, what do you find yourself leaning into for strength during times of struggle in life? And either or both of those questions, I feel very interested in hearing the answers from you.
I am a deep, deep, deep atheist all the way down. I don't believe in anything. It's a joke line, but it's real. I don't believe in anything, not even myself.
Sure.
I don't believe in anything. And the duality of that is that's so then who cares?
Sure.
Like some people would say nothing means anything. Oh my God, existential crisis. I say nothing means anything. And what a relief.
Yeah.
There's no measure.
Yeah. Now there's
I
no
am
weight
the
on my
measure.
shoulders.
I'm just doing what I'm doing.
Yep.
And I don't owe anything to a higher power. And I'm not against it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
If I was an alcoholic and I was in a program and I had to have a higher power to help me, I would choose it or default, whatever,
Yeah. Serves a function.
But in my case, 100%. And I'm for function that makes you do what you need to do. But
Mhm.
with regard to believing in oneself or needing that, yeah, I'm a nihilist. I believe in nothing. And the thing that I would lean into is the fact that I am nothing.
Mhm.
And that's powerful. And so then everything I do is by a decision and a choice that I make in a moment. And I believe that deeply. Like, I can tell you even one time that it hit me. I've said this a million times. I was standing doing a presentation in front of a huge group, and it was under a situation where something else was supposed to happen and somebody didn't show up. And then it was me. And everybody, as soon as it was me, you could see some people are like, oh, fuck, here he goes.
Yeah. Here it is.
That because I'm a jerk. And I'm not a jerk. But I'm like, I don't take things seriously because of this thing that I just said.
Right.
I don't care if you laugh at my funeral. I don't care if you fart at my wedding. You know what I mean? Like none of these things no rituals have deep meaning for me. They're not important to me. So the standing in front of this group of people in this scenario, and they're up on bleachers and I'm down on the ground and I'm looking up at them. And I'm aware that one of the biggest fears that people have is public speaking. Everybody knows that.
Mhm.
And the person who did it wasn't able to do what was supposed to happen in this moment. I don't want to say what it is because it involves an actual person.
Sure.
But I was supposed to perform a task for some person. And that person made it clear to me that it was not going to be able to happen for a number of reasons. So in the shadow of that scenario falling apart, there's me. And I look up at the crowd in this moment and I laugh and I say, I've got you outnumbered.
Yeah.
And that's the feeling that I have about nothingness.
Mm.
Like I win. None of the things that hold, not fair. Many of the things that hold people down do not hold me down at all. The
Right.
things that hold me down are stupid. You would think they were dumb. These are stupid things that hold you down.
Right.
And a lot of the common stuff does not. Like if someone said, oh, your kids don't want to have kids, you'll never have grandkids, your line will fade. I could not care less.
Right.
Why do I think my line is great?
Yeah.
My line,
Sure.
why do I give a shit?
Well, and who am I to
I
say?
want other
Yeah.
lines.
Yeah.
And that total freedom of realizing that you're a speck of nothing in a giant It used to scare me so bad as a kid, and now
Mm,
I feel that is the biggest comfort. Like, I don't matter. None of this
right.
matters. It's bad in a way. Like, would you, if the water's coming up over your head, are you going to swim or are you going to let go? I swim, right?
Right.
But I choose to swim.
Right.
Like, it's not the kind where you're like, oh, nothing means anything. Why bother? It's more like nothing means anything. Go fucking do it. Right.
Yeah. So there's nothing
A
to
little bit of
lose,
that.
right? There's nothing to lose because there's nothing at all.
It's all just a thing that's happening.
Right.
So then, like, Mark and I say to each other when we're making these documentaries, let's say we're in LA and we're coming back, and you always have a down after you do a big shoot, you shoot some cool shit, and it's over, and you are driving back to the airport or whatever, driving home, and it's a months ahead, or you might never sell it. Some of the projects we've started are 10 years old and we've never sold them. They're still sitting there, and you're in this giant existential problem, and you feel the weight of the depressing feeling like, oh my God, the fun part is done. Now there's this, and we're subject to the industry and all the bullshit that happens. And for people who don't know, I'm a documentary filmmaker. So, and Mark and I look at each other and we say, just eat the sandwich. Like,
Right.
so pull over, go to Starbucks, get the biggest, hottest, best coffee that you can. Who gives a shit what it costs? Drink it. Look at the mountains. This is rad.
Mm-hmm. It's presence, right? And that's,
Yeah.
I mean, and this is just one lens I see, but I guess I'm interested in your opinion too. But I feel a lot of people avoid presence, and that's is looking to the external and like, I don't want to be here
Yeah.
right now. I want to be somewhere else in the
Yeah.
future. And so how do I get there versus just
That is me, Bill. That's
fuck.
me.
Yeah.
That's what I want. And that's what I'm fighting. Yeah, exactly as
Yeah.
you say.
But as you're talking about, here's the mountains, here's the coffee, this is rad. Fuck yeah. 100%.
And
Yeah.
that's the job. In the face of nothing, you got to build something right there.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, that's the thing. And by the way, that doesn't, in my case, it doesn't come from, like I said, it's not from a positive place, from a negative place.
Right.
It's from being a little kid and feeling like nothing, and feeling like I feel it. I feel how big the universe is. I don't like this feeling. Sick all the time, scared all the time. I don't want to be a person. I don't want to be a thing.
Right.
Yeah. It's too much. It's too much. And then getting to the point where you're like, okay, yeah, that's free in a way.
Right. Well, and
A lot of sand on the beach.
uh-huh. Where my mind goes to is this sense of like, it's sort of duality as well. I've never expected to live very long. I've also never thought I was going to die. Right. And so it's kind of this middle ground of, and now here I am. It's like I'm still doing this living thing. Didn't see that coming, although I do expect to be doing it for a while longer. And so what do I want to do with my time? And what do I want to do in the world? And what is this function that I,
Yeah.
say purpose, or what feels fulfilling to me? What do I want to do?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
anyways, and so then it's just sort of like imposing that on myself. It's like, well, I'm still here and I don't really want to waste all this time because there's lots of awesome shit to do. Right. And so what is
Yeah.
that awesome shit for me? And what does that involve? But this
Yeah.
goes great into full circle into my next question, Randall. I'm impressed with myself, I will say. Um, Leaning into what I perceive my gifts to be, and then using them in the world and sharing them in the world and bringing other people's gifts to light and helping facilitate them share those with the world as well. And so my
Yes.
question to you is, what do you see some of your natural gifts are, and how are you able to bring them to the world around you?
Yeah. My gift is being on the outside
Mm,
and having either having the ability to tell a story from that outside perspective that allows people to see something in a new way,
mm-hmm.
kind of a facility with going, look at it from here. And then people laugh or are hopefully entertained by some, oh shit, he's able to transfer that bizarre perspective to this,
Yeah.
and something happens. So when we make movies, I'm really good at that. So that's one thing.
Hmm.
And the reason why I'm good at that is, again, just an accident. It's not, it's just a fluke that my brain works this way. Um, and the second storytelling, I mean, just the idea
Yeah,
of,
yeah.
and some people would say he goes on too long. I don't like his storytelling. That's fine. That's true. But it is the ability to do that is just
Hmm.
something that you do, I think, maybe. But then the other thing is to be macro and micro at the same time.
Mm.
Like that's the disassociation. It's probably not good, but if you're in it and out of it at the same time and you have that unique perspective, you're doing a better job of getting to some objectivity. So you're able to maybe make an impact on, like when I was a teacher, I maybe was able to make an impact on some kids
Hmm.
because I wasn't caught up in some of the same stuff that happens when an older person is teaching a younger person, where the person's self is in the way.
Right.
And like that made, I probably had some good impact there, getting someone to go, oh, yeah,
Well, as you're
sharing
saying about the
that.
witches, right? If we're learning about Macbeth, first I'm going to start with witches. Probably not a lot of teachers think that many layers apart. Like, how do I get these kids to engage? And then also, like, this is all relevant information. It's not like I'm going on a tangent. This is part of the
Yeah,
bigger picture story. It's the storytelling in the sense of a movie, really. It's the prequel and the sequel and then the main event all at
yeah,
once. Yeah.
yeah. Well, again, I didn't, I come from a time and a place where there's not much stuff informationally, and I needed it all because it was always like exploding. And
Right.
so I had to build it. I've said this a million times, but my version of anything was mine. Like I created. So I loved the band Kiss, but I didn't know anything about Kiss except what I had.
Hmm.
Tiny little scraps of Kiss that I generated.
Right.
And that gives you, when you're able to organically construct things like that and then think about it, then you can share certain elements of that in a way differently than if you're going, I like Kiss. Why? I like Kiss.
Yeah.
You should like Gene Simmons. What are you,
Yeah.
stupid? Why do you like Pink Floyd? So I didn't have the same.
Yeah. There's less
I was able to
attachment.
always be outside.
Yeah. The disassociation
Yeah.
versus the associative state. It's in everything is a double-edged sword. And there is a
That's true.
silver lining, right? It's not that this is
Yeah.
all negative. It's like, you know what, this does also come with some positive, and that's
Yeah.
uh one of my gifts, I believe, is to the ability to find and see the positive in many different circumstances.
That you push that energy large.
Mm, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, no, you just feel it coming off you in waves.
Mm.
Never felt anything negative coming off you. I can't say that about myself.
Well, and not
That's for
everybody
sure.
would agree with you, I'm sure, on that one, but because as you
Yeah,
explained
but
earlier, we all make mistakes. But yeah,
we can only do what we did.
absolutely. So in terms of
Yeah.
um advice in the lens of like some takeaways for people, even for your younger self or your future self or other people, do you
Yeah.
have any advice for people who are firstly facing or resisting a pending major life change,
Yeah.
or in the midst of a major life change, like how to navigate that?
I have advice, whether that's the advice that anyone likes or not.
Yeah.
Um, the first thing I say is get your ego out of the way always. It's the biggest destroyer, particularly I'll say of men, but that's maybe old fashioned sexist. Like the
Sure.
time I was raised, I'm not a sexist, but the time I was raised. But this idea of having to be right or having to stick to your guns or I don't want to flip flop, or to me, that is the kiss of death. When you have your ego in the way, kiss of death. It makes it impossible for you to properly heal through things and do things you need to do. Uh, that's one. So,
Mm.
ablation of ego, remove yourself from the equation, make your decision based on objectives, sort of.
Yeah.
Anyway, second thing, second thing that occurs to me is to wait for the no from outside yourself if you can. Don't
Absolutely.
build your own stops. Like, I'm just thinking of somebody doing a task that's hard. My daughter's a novelist, and I believe her fifth book was, or seventh was the one she sold.
Mm,
And and she's 28. So you have to write a lot of shit before you get a good word. And the idea would be you don't say your no. You wait for the world to give you the no.
absolutely.
They will. They'll
Yeah.
know you.
Yeah. Yeah.
It'll happen. So maybe you shouldn't be the one to do it. Yeah.
No,
And
that's
the
great.
deep, rich irony, the irony there is that my family calls me the naysayer
Right.
because I'm always going all the reasons why you shouldn't do anything.
Right.
Yeah,
But oh, but
do what I say.
on the backside of that though, stems creativity. It stems the ability to pivot. It's like these are all the
Yeah,
reasons why I should not do them, I need to be damn sure of the reasons why I want to,
yeah,
and that I want to, and I will fucking show you that I can. And that could be a subconscious or unconscious intention from yourself. Like, I want to see you succeed because I love you and I know that you have the capacity and abilities to do it. And I'm going to try to make sure that you see the potential hurdles ahead of time so that you can pivot around them as they come or even prevent them.
yeah. Too, this is coming from a negative place. God, I've gone on so long. I'm sorry, Bill.
No,
Uh,
I
but if you
That's what
see
we're
the
here for.
world in a if you, if you see the world in a dark way, and I'm not recommending that anybody do that, but if you see the world in a dark way, your behavior is in opposition to it. And then you don't want to say no because you don't want to give up and let the fuckers win, whatever the fuckers are, right? If it's
Hmm.
pain, if it's, a limitation that is being imposed upon you from elsewhere, or someone says you have to wear this tie to that wedding, simple, petty, right up to the maximal. No, God will have to stop me himself from publishing this book or whatever.
Yeah.
Like this idea, if you feel that it's a negative, dark place and you have to actively transit into the darkness and spread something else out there, you're
Hmm.
building the bridge you're standing on,
Yeah,
then, that still has the same beneficial impact as the positive version of
it
that.
does.
Like Mark Hussey or you, good people spreading love and light, as opposed to a bad person fighting his badness and trying to go out into the world and crush it, the badness that exists.
Yeah, yeah. But either way,
Yeah. And when I
uh,
say, go ahead.
no, be the change you want to see in the world. And either way, the world is a better place because of that change.
But you're a better person than me, right? I'm probably doing it from some trying to get away from a fear.
But either
I'm
way,
probably like a little squirrel.
sometimes intentions matter, and oftentimes they do, but sometimes why doesn't matter. It's outcome based. And if the outcome is a
Yeah.
net positive, does the intention or does that any of that matter? For you,
No.
yeah, because the person who is enacting this or doing it, yes, because it's your intention. But to an onlooker from someone else, it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know, if lots of inventions, I'm sure, have ill intent and then are brought into actually, we can use this for tons of awesome shit, right?
Yeah. Vice
So,
versa.
regardless of the
Yeah.
intention, here we are. And,
Yeah.
good, bad, or otherwise, the language that we use, they're all words. Yes, they make a difference to our internal state. However, Randall Lobb, you're an interesting man, right? In my perception. So regardless of whether you agree, I'm like, oh yeah, this just reinstates my already biased belief.
With, and then in my stupid worldview, without you thinking I'm interesting, I'm just some maniac yelling in the darkness.
Yeah, and I appreciate and admire that about you. Because fucking yell on, man.
I can't stop. Bill, I can't quit.
Exactly, exactly, and that's the
Yeah.
whole point. There's no other option. And I hear not so much more recently, but in the course of my life, it's this concept of how do you do it? Like, I couldn't do what you've done. I would have died, all these things. And it's like, you have the perception, not you, but people, that there's another choice. I don't. The choice is we keep going. That's why my cars keep going. You're doing great. That's where it comes from. Like, there's no perception of choice. This is just the option. And so, anyways, it's just that simple.
Yeah,
The perception of choice can be very draining, and so just remove it.
100%.
Yeah,
This is what we are.
exactly. I wonder,
Yeah.
as a last question, Randall, if there's one piece of advice that you could give that you would call Randall Lobb advice, what would it be?
This is a good one. Honey, Bill just asked me if I had one bit of advice that is classic Randall Lobb advice, what would it be? I'm asking my wife,
Yeah,
what is the advice that I would say that would be the most capturing of me? We're all going to die. Who cares? We're all going to die. Who cares?
awesome. Yeah.
Thanks, baby.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's good.
it's what do you call? I don't know sports. What's the swoosh thing? Slam dunk, whatever.
Slam dunk.
Yeah.
But that is true. That is true.
Yeah,
She's right. She nailed it. Take that chance. 100 years from now, you'll be gone, and then you're nothing. So you may as well give it a shot.
that's right. We'll never know any different. Uh, do you have anything else you'd like to cover or talk about before we wrap things up today, Randall?
I will just say that I apologize for going on too long. I have no idea how long your podcast is. We didn't do a very good job, you and I, of talking in advance, which I thought would be fun, which I'm glad that we didn't.
Yeah, me
So
too.
we just had a natural conversation. So for people who don't know, we kind of know each other, but we really don't really know each other that well.
So, as a quick side note, Joel actually, I asked him about questions too. Do you remember the Swiss ball at the Y? You're always,
Yeah.
Was that a rehab based thing? What was your draw to the Swiss ball? Because he said fucking Randall Lobb just put in his time on that Swiss ball, and Joel also likes the Swiss ball, and so he's like, that guy, like, I appreciate that. I see him doing that, and it's fucking hard. So good for him.
Are you talking about the number of ball crunches on the Swiss ball?
Well, I don't
Is that
remember
what
what
he's
you did
probably
on the
talking
Swiss
about?
ball, but yeah, you spent a lot of time in that yoga studio on the Swiss ball.
Yeah. So when I came in, you know what proprioception is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was doing these things on the Bosu to start, and I'd stand on the Bosu and do basically squats.
Yep.
And I could never do a split squat because of the hips just don't work very well.
Mm-hmm.
And P.S. I need knees done too, of course, obviously, once your hips go. But the different exercises that I was doing would be around my muscles in my back, because when your hips lock up, you use your back wrong for so many years.
Oh yeah.
And you do a lot of stupid things, so you get a lot of chain issues in there. So I'm always doing my abs, and I would be doing ball crunches, hundreds of ball crunches.
Sure.
And for an old guy like me that does not look like he does hundreds of crunches, Joel's probably thinking, what is he doing laying on that ball all day? And then I did a lot of my other workout off that ball.
Yeah. It's, well, as you're saying, the proprioceptive complexity of working on a Swiss ball or a Bosu ball, it's very hard not to fall on your face. So,
well, he is a master of it.
Yeah.
It's a miracle to watch him on that thing. I don't think people understand. I don't know if you can do anything like what he can do. It's
not even at all.
Uncanny. Insane balance, like I've never seen, like Chinese gymnast balance. It's crazy what he's doing on that thing.
It is.
Or he used to. I haven't seen him in years.
Oh yeah, he still does it. It's wild.
It's utter madness.
Yep.
Anyway,
special shout out to him. I'm getting him on one of these days as well, but
he's his own man.
Absolutely. Well, also very interesting person. So
yeah. You can sure judge him by his looks, but you'd be wrong, probably.
Oh yeah. Yep. I appreciate you, Randall.
Well, back at you, Bill.
Yeah. Well, I'm around town too, so I'm surprised we haven't crossed paths. But I'm honestly, I didn't even know you were in the country until you said you were around.
I'm a basement dweller.
Yeah.
I'm just down here working in my basement all the time.
Nice.
Yeah. Just keep working till you die. She's right. That's the saying. No stop. Run till the lights go out.